Marcus had been waiting for this day for weeks. His son, little Jaden, was turning 7, and Marcus wanted to give him a birthday he would never forget. He worked long hours at the warehouse, lifting heavy boxes every day, but he saved a little money each week. He wanted balloons, music, a small cake, and a few toys Jaden had been asking for since last month. To Marcus, this party was not just a celebration, it was a promise. A promise that no matter how hard life felt, Jaden would always have love, happiness, and safety at home. By early morning, Marcus was already outside, setting up the backyard. He tied colorful balloons to the fence, hung bright banners, and placed a long table in the center. On the table he laid snacks, chips, sandwiches, and a big bowl of fruit. The sun was shining, the weekend breeze was gentle, and the day looked perfect. His neighbors waved at him as they walked by. Marcus smiled back, feeling proud. For a moment, life felt easy. Inside the house, Jaden was jumping with excitement. He wore a small birthday badge on his shirt that read, "Birthday Boy," in big letters. He kept looking out the window, asking his father every 5 minutes, "Dad, are my friends coming soon?" Marcus laughed softly. "Yes, buddy, they're coming. Just be patient." When the first guests arrived, 2 kids from school and their parents, Jaden ran to the door with a smile so big it pushed his cheeks up. More families arrived one by one. Soon the backyard was filled with children playing tag, blowing bubbles, and laughing loudly. Parents gathered in small groups, talking about work, weather, and school. Marcus stood near the grill, cooking hot dogs and enjoying the sight. It was simple, but it was happiness. A moment he wished he could pause forever. Music played from a small speaker. Nothing loud, nothing wailed, just cheerful kids' songs. The children danced, and even some adults clapped along. Jaden's favorite superhero theme song played, and he jumped around pretending to fly. Everything was peaceful, everything was right. But then, without warning, a shadow fell over the party, not from clouds, but from something much heavier. A loud knock sounded at the front door. It wasn't a gentle knock. It was the kind of knock that made people freeze. Marcus walked toward the door, confused. When he opened it, he saw 2 police officers standing there with serious faces. They didn't smile. They didn't greet him. They only said, "We got a complaint." "A complaint?" Marcus repeated, surprised. "About what?" "It's a child's birthday party." One officer stepped forward. Noise and suspicious activity. Marcus blinked. He thought it had to be a mistake. "Sir, the kids are just playing. The music is low. You can come and see, it's peaceful." But the officers didn't want explanations. They walked past Marcus without waiting for permission. Marcus followed them quickly, worried and unsure. When the officers stepped into the backyard, the children stopped playing. Parents paused mid-conversation. Everyone looked shocked. One officer pointed at the speaker and said sharply, "Turn that off now." Marcus walked over and switched off the music, confused and embarrassed. The backyard became silent. Too silent. Then the second officer began walking around the tables, checking things as if searching for a problem that did not exist. In his quick movement, he bumped into the table holding the snacks. Cups fell to the ground, juice spilled, and a plate of sandwiches slid off. Children gasped. Jaden stepped back, eyes wide. Marcus felt a sting in his chest. This was supposed to be his son's happiest day. One officer raised his voice saying, "Everyone needs to go inside. This gathering is causing disturbance." A mother spoke gently, trying to calm things. "Officer, please, this is only a birthday party." "The children, inside," the officer repeated, ignoring her. Some children started crying. They didn't understand what was happening. They only saw uniforms, loud voices, and frightened adults. Jaden tugged on his father's sleeve and whispered, "Dad, did I do something wrong?" Those words broke Marcus's heart. His son had never seen authority act this way. He had never been made to feel like joy was a crime. Marcus knelt down and hugged Jaden tightly. "No, son. You did nothing wrong. Nothing at all." But even as he said it, Marcus felt anger and helplessness building inside him. He tried to stay calm for the children, for everyone, but inside he was hurting deeply. Years of working hard, following rules, being respectful, being patient. And still, moments like this could happen without reason. Marcus took a deep breath and stood up. He looked at the officers and spoke in a steady voice. "Please let me explain. This is a family event. Nothing more." But they weren't listening. They continued ordering people around, stepping on decorations, and moving with an energy that felt unnecessary for such a peaceful scene. The birthday cake even slid off the table when one officer brushed past it. Jaden watched the frosting fall on the ground like it was the last piece of his happiness that day. That moment right there changed everything. A simple birthday party had turned into a memory filled with fear and confusion. But Marcus, even while standing in the middle of that wrong moment, made a silent promise to himself. This would not end here. Someone would answer for this, and he would make sure of it. For a long moment, the backyard stood completely silent. The music had stopped, the children held on to their parents, and Marcus stood frozen in the middle of the mess the officers had made. A part of him wanted to shout. Another part wanted to cry. But he knew he could not do either. Not now, not in front of the kids. Especially not in front of Jaden. Marcus slowly raised his hands to show he meant no harm and spoke gently. "Officers, please. Let's talk calmly. This is just a small birthday party." His voice was soft, but inside he was shaking. He cared deeply about respecting others, even in painful moments. He had always been taught that calmness was strength. And he believed that if he stayed steady, maybe the situation would change. One officer looked at him with a stiff expression. "Sir, take everyone inside now." "But why?" Marcus asked. "There is no danger here. No loud music. No trouble. These are children." The officer did not answer. Instead, he stepped closer to the table again, pushing the plates aside as if searching for something. The kids watched with scared eyes, not understanding why adults in uniforms were acting this way. Parents exchanged confused looks. Some whispered, "This is unnecessary," while others tried to calm their children. Jaden stood behind his father, holding the back of his shirt tightly. He was trying hard not to cry, but his small face showed fear he had never felt before. He had always believed uniforms meant safety, not this. Marcus bent down again and whispered, "It's okay, buddy. I'm here." Jaden nodded, but his hands did not let go. Marcus stood up straighter this time. His voice was gentle but firm. "Officers, I want to understand. Did someone complain? Can we resolve this peacefully?" One officer sighed loudly, as if irritated by being questioned. A neighbor reported noise and disorder. Marcus blinked in disbelief. Noise? Disorder? It was only kids laughing and soft music. He took a slow breath and said with patience, "Sir, you can see with your own eyes this is only a children's party." But the officers were not listening. They seemed more focused on showing authority than understanding the situation. A balloon popped behind them, just a normal balloon that touched a branch and burst. But the sudden pop made both officers react fast, turning sharply and raising their voices, telling everyone again to move inside. More children began crying. Some hid behind their parents. Others held onto their toys tightly. A mother stepped forward politely. "Please, officer, you're scaring the kids. If you want to talk, we can talk calmly." But one officer simply repeated, "Inside, now." Marcus felt something heavy inside his chest. He hated seeing families, especially the children, feel afraid. His party, the day he worked so hard for, was slipping away into something painful and wrong. Still, he refused to lose control. "Everyone," Marcus said softly to the parents, "please take your kids inside for a moment. I will speak to the officers alone." Parents slowly picked up their crying children. Some of the kids asked, "What happened?" Or, "Why are they angry?" And the parents could not answer. They only held their little ones close. As people moved inside, the backyard felt emptier. Decorations were still hanging, but now they looked sad, like forgotten colors in a storm. The cake on the ground was smashed on one side. A superhero toy lay under a table. Jaden's birthday banner was tilted. Everything looked broken in some way. Marcus stood alone now, facing the officers. He kept his hands visible and his voice calm. "Officers," he said clearly, "I respect your job. I respect the law. But this is not right. You ruined a child's birthday without checking first what was happening. You stepped on decorations. You scared kids. You didn't give me a chance to explain." The officers exchanged glances. One of them said sharply, "You need to understand that we handle complaints seriously." "I understand that," Marcus replied. "But what about how you handle people? You handled us like we were doing something wrong. Like we were trouble. We are families, parents, children." For the first time, the officers hesitated. Not much, but enough for Marcus to notice. Maybe they were realizing they had acted too quickly. Maybe they were realizing they had overreacted. But neither of them apologized. Neither of them softened their tone. They simply said, "We will file our report." And then they walked away. They did not say goodbye. They did not look back. Marcus watched them leave, their radio static fading with each step. When their car drove off, the silence left behind felt even heavier. He closed the backyard gate slowly, his hands slightly shaking. He turned around and looked at the ruined decorations, the spilled food, the broken pieces of joy. For a moment, he let himself feel the sadness he was hiding. Then he wiped his eyes quickly and walked inside. When he entered the living room, the children were sitting quietly. Some still sniffled. Parents tried to distract them with games or stories. But Jaden ran straight to Marcus and hugged him tightly. "Dad," he said softly, "did I do anything wrong?" Marcus hugged him back with all his strength. "No, Jaden. You did nothing wrong. Nothing at all." Jaden looked up with wet eyes. "Then why did they shout?" Marcus knelt down, taking his son's face gently in his hands. "Sometimes people make mistakes. Even adults. Even people in uniforms. But I promise you, your birthday is still special. And I will fix everything." Jaden nodded slowly. He believed his father. He always did. Marcus stood up again. Now his sadness had turned into something else, quiet determination. He knew this was not over. He knew someone needed to hear the truth. And he knew the next step he would take would change everything. Marcus stepped back into the living room. He expected to see noise, movement, and leftover excitement from the birthday party. Instead, he saw quietness. A kind of quietness that did not belong in a house full of children. The laughter that once filled the backyard was gone. It had been replaced by soft sniffles, confused eyes, and small hands tightly holding onto their parents. The kids sat in a circle on the floor with their toys untouched. Some held half-eaten pieces of cake on their plates, but even the sweet taste did not comfort them. The joy from earlier had melted away, just like the frosting that was now smashed on the ground outside. Jaden sat closest to Marcus. His legs were pulled to his chest, his chin resting on his knees. His little birthday badge was bent and one corner was ripped. Marcus noticed it and felt a deep ache in his heart. That badge was supposed to remind Jaden it was his day, a happy day. Now it only felt like a reminder of the moment everything went wrong. One of the girls in the circle, Lyle, looked up with tears in her eyes and asked softly, "Uncle Marcus, why were the officers angry at us?" Her voice was so small, so innocent, that Marcus felt his throat tighten. He knelt down next to her. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said gently. They didn't understand what was happening. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. But they shouted, a little boy whispered. And they knocked the table. Another child added, and they stepped on the balloons. Marcus took a slow breath. He wanted to choose the right words. Words that would not teach fear, but strength. "Listen," he said calmly. "You are all good kids. You were just celebrating your friend's birthday. The officers should have asked questions first, but they didn't. That wasn't fair. But what matters is this: everyone here is safe now. And none of you did anything wrong. Not one of you." Jaden moved closer and wrapped his arms around his father. "Dad, I didn't like it when they yelled. It felt like my party was bad." Marcus hugged him tightly. "Your party wasn't bad, Jaden. Something wrong happened, but you weren't the cause. I promise you that." Parents nodded in agreement. Some added quiet words of comfort to their children. Slowly, the kids began to calm down a little, though the fear still lingered in their eyes. A mother named Sarah stood up and placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "I'm really sorry, Marcus. This should have never happened. You didn't deserve this. Jaden didn't deserve this." Marcus forced a small smile. "Thank you. I appreciate it. But I'll make sure this doesn't happen again." Parents exchanged looks. They could see something in Marcus's eyes, something strong and steady. It wasn't anger. It wasn't rage. It was determination. The children began talking again, quietly, one by one. "My toy broke when he pushed the table. My little brother got scared. I didn't like when the balloon popped and they shouted." Each voice was like another weight placed on Marcus's chest. It wasn't just his party that had been ruined. It was the trust of innocent kids. A trust that should never be shaken. Jaden, still holding onto his father's arm, whispered, "Dad, will they come back?" Marcus shook his head. "No, buddy. They won't come back. And even if they did, I will always stand in front of you. Always." The boy nodded, but his eyes looked older than they should. No 7-year-old should have to ask such questions. After a few minutes of silence, Marcus took a deep breath and stood. He clapped his hands lightly to get everyone's attention, but gently, nothing loud that might startle the kids again. "All right, everyone," he said softly. "Thank you for staying calm. I know today didn't go how we wanted. But we're still together. We're still safe. And we will make this right." Parents nodded. One father spoke up, "If you need anything, Marcus, we're here." Another mother added, "We saw everything. We can share what we saw." Their support gave Marcus strength. He felt something rise inside him, something that reminded him of who he was. A father, a protector, a man who believed in fairness. Jaden tugged his shirt gently. "Can we still do the cake later?" Marcus smiled and brushed Jaden's hair. "Yes, buddy. We can make a new cake if we have to. Your birthday isn't over." The children smiled faintly at that. It wasn't full joy yet, but it was a small light returning. But deep inside, Marcus was already thinking ahead. He walked to the kitchen and picked up his phone. He stared at it for a long moment. He thought about his son, the frightened children, the ruined decorations, the officers who never listened. He remembered something his late father once told him. If you stay silent when something wrong happens, then the wrong wins. Marcus wasn't going to let that happen. He looked at Jaden again. And in that moment, he made a decision. Tonight, he would make a call. A call to someone who would listen. A call that would bring truth into the light. A call that would bring truth into the light. Call that would change everything. And as the kids slowly began playing again, soft, gentle play, Marcus stepped outside for a moment. Staring at the backyard. The balloons were still moving in the wind. The decorations still hung on the fence. The cake was still broken on the ground, but this time, Marcus didn't see a ruined party. He saw a starting point, the beginning of the fight for what was right. After the children calmed down and the parents slowly left, the house became quiet again. Not the happy kind of quiet after a long party, but the heavy kind, the kind that comes after something unfair. The kind that stays in the walls like a shadow. Jaden had finally gone to his room. He tried his best to smile before sleeping, but Marcus could still see fear in his eyes. That fear cut deep into Marcus's heart. Now, standing alone in the kitchen, Marcus looked at his phone on the counter. He picked it up and set it down again. He did this 3 times, as if the phone weighed more than it should. He wiped his hands on his jeans and took a deep breath. He was not a man who liked to complain. He was not someone who rushed to anger. But tonight was different. Tonight wasn't about him. This was about Jaden, about the kids, about fairness. He remembered a name. Someone he trusted. Someone the community respected. Mr. Allen, a community leader, and a civil rights attorney who always helped people when they had no one else to turn to. Marcus had met him once at a local meeting about youth programs. Mr. Allen had said something that stuck with him. Silence is the seed of injustice. Speak, and you plant truth. Marcus held on to those words now. He finally picked up his phone again and pressed the number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Marcus almost hung up. Then a calm, steady voice answered. This is Allen. Marcus felt his heart beat faster. Mr. Allen. It's Marcus Reed. I don't know if you remember me. We met at the community center last year. Of course, Marcus, Allen replied. How can I help you? Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, organizing the emotions in his chest. Then he began speaking. Slowly at first, then clearer, stronger. He told him everything. How he saved for weeks for the birthday. How the kids were laughing and playing. How the officers came without asking questions. How they pushed over the table, scared the children, and shouted for no reason. How Jaden asked, Dad, did I do something wrong? Marcus's voice cracked when he said those words. He hadn't expected that. But Mr. Allen didn't interrupt. He listened with patience and respect. When Marcus finished, there was a short silence. Then Mr. Allen spoke, his voice firm but controlled. Marcus, you did the right thing by calling me. What happened at your home today is unacceptable. Officers must follow rules. They must show respect. They must not act without reason. And everything you described goes against proper procedure. Marcus's shoulders dropped slightly in relief. Someone believed him. Someone understood. Mr. Allen continued. First, I need evidence. Do you have videos or photos? Marcus nodded even though he was alone. Yes, some parents recorded parts of it. And a few neighbors watched everything. They said they'll support me. That's good, Allen replied. Collect everything. Every video, every picture, every witness statement. We will use it all. Marcus felt hope slowly rising like sun after a long night. Will this help my son understand he wasn't wrong? Mr. Allen's voice softened. Marcus, this is not just about your son. This is about every child who is scared today. You're standing up for all of them. And yes, this will show Jaden that people who do wrong actions must take responsibility. Marcus's eyes filled with tears he didn't expect. Not tears of sadness, but tears of strength. What do we do next? He asked. Tonight, Mr. Allen said, you rest. Tomorrow morning we start. I'll prepare an official complaint. I'll contact the department. And once I review the videos, we'll take it further. The officers will have to explain their actions. They cannot ignore this. Marcus nodded firmly, feeling a new kind of energy inside him. Quiet courage. Before ending the call, Mr. Allen added, Marcus, listen carefully. You did nothing wrong. And your son did nothing wrong. Remember that. I will, Marcus said softly. When the call ended, Marcus placed the phone down gently. He looked around the quiet kitchen, the decorations still half hanging, the leftover food, the empty plates. Everything felt different now. Not broken, not weak, more like the beginning of something powerful. He opened the back door and stepped into the yard. The night breeze touched his face. The moonlight made the fallen decorations look silver, almost peaceful. Marcus walked to the spot where the cake had fallen earlier. He crouched down and touched the dried frosting on the grass. For a moment, he closed his eyes. Then he stood tall. Tomorrow he would gather the videos. He would talk to the neighbors. He would give Mr. Allen everything needed. And truth, real truth, would begin its journey. He looked toward Jaden's bedroom window. The light was off. His boy was sleeping. Marcus whispered into the night, "I'll fix this, son. I promise. No one will ever make you feel small again." Inside his heart, a fire burned quietly, strong, steady, unshakable. This was the moment everything changed. The beginning of justice. The first step toward clearing the fear from his son's eyes, and Marcus was ready for whatever came next. The next morning, Marcus woke up earlier than usual. For a moment, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, remembering the day before. The ruined decorations, the frightened kids, Jaden's confused eyes, all of it returned like a heavy cloud. But today felt different. Today, he had a mission. When he stepped into the kitchen, sunlight was shining inside. The house still looked messy from the half-destroyed birthday party. Balloons hung low, the banner leaned to one side, and the tablecloth was still wrinkled from when the officers pushed past it. Yet somehow, the light made everything look less sad. It looked like a battlefield. Right before recovery, Jaden walked in quietly, rubbing his eyes. "Morning, Dad." Marcus smiled gently and hugged him. "Morning, buddy. How are you feeling?" Jaden shrugged. "A little sad. But better." Marcus nodded. "Today will get better. I promise." After breakfast, the father put on a clean shirt and took a deep breath. He needed strength for himself and for Jaden. Then he began the real work, gathering the first pieces of truth. Marcus started by knocking on the door of the family who lived across the street. The mother opened the door, her expression warm and supportive. "Marcus," she said, "we saw everything yesterday. It wasn't right. Come inside." Her husband joined, holding his phone. "We have videos. Clear ones." The officers didn't even check what was happening. They came in angry and acted without reason. Marcus felt gratitude rising in his chest. "Thank you. Thank you for helping." The neighbor transferred the videos to Marcus's phone. In the clips, the truth was obvious. The children were playing normally. The music was soft. The atmosphere was peaceful, and then the officers appeared loud, tense, and careless. One video even showed the moment the officer bumped the table, causing food to fall. Another showed kids crying as the officer shouted. Marcus watched each clip carefully. His jaw tightened, not with hate, but with a strong sense of responsibility. "This is the proof," he whispered. More people stepped forward next. He visited the families who came to the party. Almost every parent had recorded something. Some short clips, some long ones, some pictures. Each one told the same story. One mother handed him a photo where the officer was stepping on a balloon decoration. "I didn't think this picture mattered yesterday," she said. "But now I see it does." Another parent said, "Whatever you're doing, Marcus, we're with you. Just tell us if you need statements. We'll sign anything." Marcus felt his heart swell with gratitude again. People were standing with him. They were not afraid to speak. In a world where many stayed silent, this support meant everything. The call with Mr. Allen around noon. Marcus sat at the kitchen table and dialed Mr. Allen again. When the attorney answered, Marcus said, I have everything. Videos, photos, witnesses, parents ready to help. Neighbors too. Good, Alan replied, his voice steady. Send everything to me. I'll begin preparing the complaint immediately. Once the department sees the evidence, they will have no choice but to start an investigation. Marcus sent everything. Each file felt like a piece of truth being placed on the table of justice. After reviewing the videos, Mr. Allen called back within an hour. Marcus, this is strong. This is not a small misunderstanding. This shows clear unprofessional behavior. What happens now? Marcus asked. Now, Allen said, we push forward. I'm filing the complaint today. And I'm contacting local media. The community has the right to know. Marcus's heart jumped. Media, will that be safe? We won't show your address or anything personal, Allen explained. But stories like this bring change. When people see what happened to your son and the other children, they will speak. And when the community speaks, the department listens. Marcus took a long breath. Okay, let's do it. The story reaches the community by evening. The first news story was out. A small local website posted an article titled, Children's Birthday Party Interrupted by Officer. Misconduct, Family Calls for Justice. The story spread quickly on social media. People began commenting like, this is terrible. Those kids didn't deserve that. Why didn't the officers check before acting? Good that the father is speaking up. The support was growing. Neighbors stopped by Marcus's house just to say, we're with you. A teacher from Jaden's school called to say she would help if needed. Even people Marcus didn't know messaged him, offering encouragement. Jaden watched some of the comments with wide eyes. Dad, people are helping us? Yes, Marcus said softly. Good people always help when something wrong happens. Jaden smiled for the first time that day. A real smile. A hopeful smile. The police department responds the next morning. Marcus received an email from the police department. It stated that the complaint had been received, and an internal review would begin immediately. The tone was formal, but there was something else to concern. They were taking it seriously. Later that afternoon, a reporter called Marcus asking for an interview. He said no to being filmed, but he agreed to give a statement. He described everything calmly, clearly, respectfully. I'm not here to attack anyone, Marcus said. I only want fairness. I want the officers to understand what they did. I want kids to feel safe again. The reporter nodded. Your voice matters, Marcus. People are listening. The truth was no longer hidden videos. Photos, witnesses, news stories, community support. Everything was out now. The truth had stepped into the light, and once truth starts walking, it does not stop. The department could not ignore it. The officers could not run from it. And the community would not forget it. Marcus stood in the backyard again that evening. The decorations moved gently in the wind. Jaden played quietly on the steps, drawing with crayons. For the first time since the party, the air felt light again. The truth had finally begun its journey. And Marcus knew something big was coming next. It's something that would change everything. The investigation began only 2 days after Marcus and Mr. Allen submitted all the evidence. It moved faster than anyone expected. Usually these things took weeks, but the number of videos and witness statements made it impossible to ignore. The story had already reached hundreds of people online, and the community was watching closely. Marcus waited patiently, but the weight was heavy. Every morning, he checked his email. Every afternoon, he checked his phone. Each time he hoped for an update. Each time he reminded himself to stay calm. Jaden, meanwhile, began feeling brighter again. He no longer woke up scared. He no longer asked if the officers would return. At night, Marcus would tuck him in and say, "We're fixing things, son. One step at a time." And Jaden would smile a little and whisper, "I know." Dad. That small smile gave Marcus all the strength he needed. Inside the police department, while Marcus gathered support at home, things inside the police department were tense. The officers who had responded to the birthday party, Officer Grant and Officer Miller, were called in for questioning. They sat in a small meeting room with their supervisor, Captain Hughes. On the table were printed reports, screenshots of videos, and statements from parents and neighbors. Captain Hughes looked at them seriously. I've reviewed everything. The department has reviewed everything. I need clear answers. Officer Grant shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Officer Miller tapped his foot nervously. Sir, Grant said, we were responding to a noise complaint. We thought. Captain Hughes stopped him. Did you see any signs of trouble when you arrived? Grant hesitated. Well, no. But, and did you ask the father what was happening before entering the yard? Another pause. No, sir. Did you request permission to enter the private property? Hughes continued. Grant and Miller exchanged a look. Not formally. The captain sighed deeply. He was an old man who had served the community for 30 years. He believed in respect, fairness, and proper procedure. Watching two officers break those rules made his heart heavy. He opened a folder. There are multiple videos showing you shouting, knocking over a table, and frightening children. One video shows you reacting harshly to a balloon popping. Officer Miller swallowed hard. Sir, it happened suddenly. It startled us. Children were crying, Hughes said. Parents were scared. And you gave no reasonable explanation for your behavior. The room went silent. Then Captain Hughes said something neither officer expected. You have put this department in a very difficult position. And you have hurt families who did nothing wrong. Community pressure grows outside the department. The story kept growing. People from nearby neighborhoods read the article and shared it. A local radio station talked about it. Even some teachers discussed it in staff meetings, saying things like, those kids deserved better. I hope the officers learn from this. That father is brave for speaking up. One evening, Marcus stood outside on his porch when a group of neighbors approached him. They brought a card that read, "We stand with your family." Marcus felt moved. "Thank you," he said softly. "We're proud of you," one woman told him. "You're doing this for all our kids." The unity gave Marcus hope. He knew the investigation was serious now, not just because of evidence, but because people cared. The decision day 1 week later, Marcus received a call from Mr. Allen. "Marcus," Allen said, "they have finished the investigation." Marcus froze. His breath caught. "And what happened?" "I'll read it to you," Allen said calmly. The department found the officers' actions to be unprofessional and against policy. They acted without proper procedure. They did not communicate. They used unnecessary authority. And they caused emotional harm to children. Marcus closed his eyes as emotions rushed through him. "Officer Grant and Officer Miller are being disciplined," Allen continued. "One is losing his job. The other is suspended for 6 months and required to undergo full training before returning." Marcus sat down slowly. He felt a strange mix of relief, sadness, and strength. Not happiness, because nothing about that day was happy, but relief that the truth had been seen. "Marcus," Allen added, "your voice made this happen. Your calmness, your courage, and your evidence." Marcus whispered, "Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Allen." "You did the right thing," Allen said. "Your son will grow up knowing his father stood for fairness." The officers faced their fate inside the department. Officer Grant received the news first. His face turned pale. "Terminated?" He asked quietly. "Yes," Captain Hughes said. "Your actions left us no choice." Grant lowered his head. For the first time, he understood the weight of what he had done. Officer Miller received his letter next. Suspended. Required retraining. public apology recommended. He swallowed hard and said, "I didn't mean to," Hughes interrupted. "Intent does not erase harm. Learn from this." Marcus tells Jaden that evening. Marcus sat beside Jaden on the couch. "Buddy," he said gently, "remember the officers who scared everyone?" Jaden nodded slowly. "There was an investigation," Marcus continued. "They found out the officers didn't follow rules. They made mistakes, and they must face the results." Jaden blinked. "Does that mean they know they were wrong?" "Yes," Marcus said softly. "They know now." Jaden smiled a small, soft smile, full of comfort. "Dad, does that mean we're safe?" Marcus hugged him tightly. "Yes, son. We're safe. And your dad made sure of it." Jaden rested his head on his father's chest. "I'm proud of you, Dad." Those words and the warmth of his child's trust were the real victory. Justice had begun. Respect was restored. And Marcus knew the next part of their journey would bring healing. Days passed after the investigation ended, and life slowly returned to normal in Marcus's home. The fear that once lived in the corners of the house began to fade. The heaviness that followed every step felt lighter. And Jaden, who had been so shaken by the officer's behavior, was beginning to smile again, not the small, unsure smile from before, but real. Bright smiles that reached his eyes. One morning, Jaden woke up earlier than usual. He ran into the kitchen where Marcus was pouring cereal and said, "Dad, can we have another party? A happy one this time?" Marcus looked down at his son's hopeful face and felt something warm fill his chest. "You want another birthday celebration?" Jaden nodded excitedly. "Yes, but only if it's okay." Marcus laughed softly. "It's more than okay, buddy. You deserve it." The truth was, Marcus had already been thinking the same thing. He wanted to give Jaden a memory that would replace the fear. A memory strong enough to wash away the sadness. A memory that would remind Jaden that joy always returns after darkness, and as if the universe had been listening. Support began arriving without Marcus asking. The community steps in 3 neighbors showed up the next day with balloons and decorations. One of them said, "Marcus, we want to help. Let's make this right." Another family brought cupcakes. A father brought folding chairs. A mother brought a bag filled with small toys for the kids. "Your son deserves a real birthday," she said kindly. One after another, people came with gifts, food, paper plates, and warm smiles. It was completely different from the days after the ruined party. There was no tension, now only love, kindness, and unity. Marcus looked around amazed. "You didn't have to do all this." But they all replied the same way, "Yes, we did." The new celebration begins. The backyard was decorated again, but this time, even better. Bright balloons floated above every corner. Colorful banners hung across the fence. And the music played softly, just enough to bring joy without disturbing anyone. Jaden came outside, and his eyes grew wide like shining stars. "Dad, it's beautiful." Marcus lifted him up and spun him gently. "It's all for you, buddy." Soon children from the neighborhood arrived, kids from school, kids from nearby houses, and even a few who were at the first birthday. They ran around happily, laughing loudly and freely. The parents stood around watching, smiling, feeling proud that the community stood together. A special guest arrives just when the party was in full swing. A familiar car pulled up outside. Marcus recognized it immediately. Mr. Allen stepped out wearing a simple shirt, holding a small gift bag in his hand. Marcus walked toward him, his heart full of gratitude. "Mr. Allen, thank you for coming." The attorney smiled warmly. "I had to. Jaden deserves a good memory." Jaden walked over. Shyly, Mr. Allen knelt and handed him the gift. "I heard you like superheroes," he said. Jaden's eyes lit up as he opened the bag and found a small superhero action figure inside. "Thank you." he exclaimed. Mr. Allen smiled. "You're welcome, young man. Always remember, real heroes stand up for what's right. And your dad is one of them." Jaden turned to Marcus and hugged him tightly. Marcus felt his throat tighten as he hugged him back, the meaning of strength later. While the kids played and the adults chatted, Marcus stood by the fence. Looking at the happy scene in front of him, Mr. Allen walked up beside him. "You did something important," Allen said quietly. Marcus shook his head. "I just wanted to protect my son." "That's exactly what makes it important," Allen replied. "You chose calm instead of anger. You chose truth instead of fear. And because of that, not only did your son learn a lesson, but the whole community did too." Marcus took a slow breath. I didn't want this to happen to anyone else." "It won't," Allen assured. "The department will change after this. They already started reviewing their procedures." Marcus nodded. It felt good knowing something positive came out of such a difficult moment, a powerful lesson for Jaden later that evening. When the sun was setting and the sky had turned a soft orange, Marcus sat on the steps with Jaden. The party was ending. Kids were going home with big smiles and small toys. Jaden leaned on his father's shoulder. "Dad, today was the best birthday ever." Marcus smiled. "I'm glad, son." Jaden lifted his superhero toy. "This one is special." Mr. Allen said heroes stand up for what's right. Marcus looked down at him and gently placed a hand on his back. "He's right. And you know something else?" Jaden looked up curiously. "You're a hero too," Marcus said. "You stayed strong. You trusted your dad. And even when things were scary, you didn't give up your smile." Jaden grinned proudly. "Really?" "Really," Marcus said. The final moment, when everyone had left and the backyard was quiet again, Marcus stayed outside for a while. The wind moved the leftover balloons gently. The moon was rising. The night felt peaceful, truly peaceful for the first time since the incident. He looked up and whispered softly, "Thank you." He didn't say who he was thanking, maybe life, maybe truth, maybe courage, but the gratitude filled his heart. He turned to go inside. And Jaden ran to him one last time. "Dad," Jaden said, hugging him. This birthday was perfect. Marcus held him close. "You deserve perfect." And with that, they walked inside together with full hearts. A new chapter had started. A chapter built on fairness, courage, and community. A chapter where fear was replaced by respect, and broken moments were replaced by hope. The story that once began with sorrow ended with strength.